Have you ever felt invisible in your own family? Like your stories, your experiences, even your feelings, do not matter? I lived many years with that quiet pain, when they rolled their eyes at my stories and did not listen. I wondered if I was just a shadow in their lives, a background noise no one wanted to hear. But one day, everything changed. What began as silence and dismissal became the spark that lit my fire. I found a strength I did not know I had. I wrote a book, a bestseller about them, and it changed my life forever. This is my story. It is not just about betrayal or hurt. It is about hope, courage, and finding your voice when the world tries to silence you. Before we jump back in, tell us where you are tuning in from. And if this story touches your heart, please subscribe. Because tomorrow, I have saved something truly special just for you. I live in a small town called Willow Creek. It is quiet and peaceful. Every morning I wake up early and make a cup of tea. I like to sit by the window and watch the birds outside. The sun shines softly through the trees, and the air smells fresh. This is my calm moment before the day begins. My name is Margaret. I am 52 years old. I have lived in this town for most of my life. I work part-time at the local library. I love books. They have been my friends through good times and hard times. My house is small but comfortable. It has a garden with roses and lavender. I spend many afternoons caring for my plants. Gardening makes me feel happy and calm. I have 2 children. My son David is 28. He lives in the city with his wife and their young son Jacob. My daughter Anna is 25. She works as a nurse in a nearby hospital. I am proud of both of them, even though we do not talk very often. Life is busy for all of us. Every Sunday, my family comes to visit me. We have lunch together. My son and daughter bring Jacob with them. He is a lively boy, full of energy and questions. Sometimes I tell stories about my childhood or the times when I was younger. I like to see Jacob's eyes grow wide with wonder. I want him to know where he comes from. In my family, stories are important. They keep us connected. But lately I feel that my stories are not heard anymore. When I talk, I see my son roll his eyes or look away. My daughter sometimes smiles politely but does not say much. Even Jacob seems distracted. It is as if my stories do not matter to them. I do not understand why. I have lived many experiences and learned many lessons. I want to share these with my family. I want to be part of their lives, not just someone in the background. Sometimes I feel invisible. Despite this, I try to stay positive. I believe that family is the most important thing. We must support each other, even when it is hard. I hope that one day my family will listen to me again and value what I say. For now, I enjoy my daily routine. I wake up, make tea, and tend to my garden. I work at the library, where I help others find books that bring them joy. I write in my journal every night. Writing helps me understand my feelings. It is my way of speaking when the words do not come easily in conversation. Life in Willow Creek is simple but good. I have my health, my home, and memories that warm my heart. I know that life will bring challenges, but I also know that I have the strength to face them. That Sunday afternoon, everything felt normal at first. The house was filled with the smell of roasted chicken and fresh bread. Jacob was running around the garden, chasing butterflies. My daughter, Anna, was in the kitchen helping me set the table. My son, David, sat quietly by the window, scrolling through his phone. I began telling one of my favorite stories about the summer I spent at my grandmother's farm. It was a simple tale about picking strawberries and watching the stars at night. I expected Jacob to listen with wide eyes, as he usually did. But this time, something was different. David looked up from his phone and rolled his eyes. Anna smiled politely but did not say anything. Even Jacob stopped running and looked away. The warmth in the room seemed to cool suddenly. I felt a strange tightness in my chest. I tried to keep my voice steady as I finished the story, but inside, I was confused and hurt. Why did they not want to hear me? Why did they seem to think my stories were boring or unimportant? After lunch, David stood and said he had to leave early. He did not say goodbye properly, just a quick nod and a "see you soon." Anna helped clean up the dishes while Jacob followed her quietly. I watched them go, feeling a little lost. Later, that evening, I sat alone in the living room. The house was quiet except for the ticking of the old clock on the wall. I held my cup of tea and thought about the strange change in my family's behavior. I could feel something changing, but I did not understand what it was. I wondered if I had done something wrong. Had I said something that upset them? Was I too old-fashioned with my stories? My mind raced with questions, but no answers came. That night, I could not sleep. I lay in bed and listened to the sounds outside. The wind in the trees, the distant bark of a dog. I thought about the smiles that had disappeared that afternoon, the eyes that looked away when I spoke. I knew that change was coming. Something in our family was shifting, but I did not know if it would bring us closer or push us apart. Before I closed my eyes, I whispered to myself, I could feel something changing. After that Sunday, my world felt different. I could not explain the strange feeling inside me. Every time I thought about my family, a quiet confusion grew in my heart. I wanted to understand what was happening, but the more I tried, the less clear things became. I spent many mornings sitting by my kitchen window, watching the sun rise over the trees. The world outside seemed calm and simple, but inside me, emotions were tangled like a heavy knot. I felt sadness, but I also felt anger and fear. I wondered if I was losing my place in the family, the place I had held for so long. David, my son, had always been close to me. When he was a child, he loved to listen to my stories. He would sit on the floor, his eyes shining with curiosity. But now, his cold looks and short answers made me wonder if he cared at all. Anna tried to be kind, but I could see the distance in her eyes. Sometimes she smiled at me, but it felt like she was hiding something. Jacob, my lively grandson, used to come running to my arms. Now, he seemed shy and quiet when he was around me. I asked myself many questions. Had I changed? Or had they changed? Was it something I said or did? Or was it something in their lives that I did not know? At the library, I found comfort among the books. They did not judge me or ignore me. They were always ready to listen. I spent hours reading stories about people who faced hard times and found hope. Sometimes I wrote my own thoughts in a small notebook. Writing helped me clear my mind, but it did not answer my questions. One afternoon, as I walked home from the library, I saw a group of young people laughing and talking together. They looked happy and connected. I felt a sharp pain in my chest. I wished my family could be like that again, close and full of love. That night, I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling. I thought about the past, about the happy moments we had shared. I remembered my children as small kids, their faces full of trust and joy. I wanted to believe that those days could come back. But deep inside, I felt lost. I felt like a stranger in my own family. The confusion was heavy, and the silence around me was louder than ever. I decided to wait and watch. I wanted to understand more before I said or did anything. Maybe, with time, things would become clearer. Maybe they would come back to me. For now, I held on to hope. I told myself that every family has hard times. I told myself that love can find a way, even through silence and hurt. Still, I could not shake the feeling that something important was breaking inside us, and I was not sure if we could fix it. The days after that confusing Sunday felt heavy, like the air before a storm. I wanted to believe that everything was only a passing cloud, a small problem that would disappear with time. Deep inside, I wanted to trust my son David again. I wanted to believe that the strange distance between us was only temporary. David had been my pride and joy for many years. I remembered his first steps, his first words. I had held him close when he was scared or sad. We shared so many memories. I told myself that our bond was strong enough to survive this hard moment. One afternoon, David called me. His voice was softer than usual. He said he wanted to come visit. My heart lifted. Maybe this was a sign. Maybe he was ready to talk, to listen, to rebuild what felt broken. When he arrived, I greeted him with a warm smile. I prepared his favorite tea and baked a small cake. We sat in the living room, the soft light from the lamp casting gentle shadows on the walls. I looked at him carefully. He looked tired, but there was a kindness in his eyes that I had not seen for weeks. We talked about small things at first, the weather, the new books at the library, Jacob's school. Slowly, the conversation grew deeper. David spoke about his work and the challenges he faced. I listened and nodded, trying to show that I cared. At one point, I asked him gently if everything was okay between us. He looked down for a moment, then back at me. "Mom," he said quietly, "I have been under a lot of pressure. Sometimes I do not know how to say what I feel." I reached out and took his hand. "You can always tell me," I said. "I want to understand. I want to be here for you." For a moment, it felt like the wall between us was breaking. I felt hope. But then, David pulled his hand away slightly. "I know, Mom. I appreciate that, but sometimes it is easier to handle things on my own." His words made me pause. I wanted to trust him fully, but I felt a small seed of doubt. Was he really ready to share, or was he hiding something? I decided not to push. Trust, I reminded myself, grows slowly. It cannot be forced. I would wait and show him that I was here, no matter what. That evening, after David left, I sat by the window again. I thought about his words and his tired eyes. I wanted to believe that he would open up to me when he was ready. I also wanted to trust my feelings. The hope I had was like a fragile flame. It could light the dark path ahead, but it could also be blown out by the smallest wind. Still, I held on to that flame. I wanted to believe in my family, in love, and in the possibility of healing. Tomorrow I will share a warning I heard, a quiet voice that made me stop and think. It was a moment I wished I could forget, but it changed everything. The days after David's visit felt different. I carried a small hope in my heart, but at the same time, a quiet voice inside me whispered a warning. It was not loud, but it was persistent. I could not ignore it. One afternoon, I met my old friend, Susan, at the local coffee shop. Susan and I have known each other for over 30 years. She is a wise woman, and I trust her deeply. We talked about many things: the town, the weather, the changes in our families. When I told her about my recent time with David, she listened carefully. Then she looked at me with concern. "Margaret," she said softly, "sometimes, when people act differently, it is not because of us. It is because they are fighting their own battles. But you must be careful. Not everyone shows their true feelings right away." Her words stayed with me long after we said goodbye. I thought about David's tired eyes and the way he pulled his hand away. Was he hiding something from me? Was there something wrong that he did not want to share? That night, I could not sleep. I kept thinking about Susan's warning. I wondered. If I was being too trusting or too blind? Was I missing signs that something was wrong? Was I preparing myself for pain? The warning grew louder in my mind. I thought about my family and the strange distance that had come between us. I thought about the stories that were no longer heard. I thought about the feeling that something was breaking slowly but surely. I decided to pay more attention. I began watching the small signs, the way David avoided certain topics, the way Anna's smiles sometimes did not reach her eyes, the way Jacob sometimes looked at me with a question he did not ask. It was as if my family was hiding something from me, and I did not know what. I felt torn. Part of me wanted to believe everything was fine. Another part wanted to protect myself from more hurt. Susan's words became a quiet guide. "Be careful," she had said. "Trust your heart, but also trust your instincts." The next day, I tried to convince myself that I was overthinking. I told myself that families go through difficult times, and sometimes it just takes patience. But inside, I was already preparing for a storm. I could feel the tension growing, even in the smallest moments. A look that lasted too long, a silence that felt too heavy. That night, as I sat by the window with a cup of tea, I whispered to myself, "I hear a warning." It was not just a feeling. It was a message that I needed to listen. After hearing Susan's warning, I found myself caught in a struggle. Deep inside, I knew something was wrong. My heart whispered doubts and fears, but my mind fought to push those feelings away. I wanted to believe that everything was fine. I wanted to hold on to the hope I had felt when David visited. Each morning, I told myself, "Do not think too much. Do not worry. Things will get better." I repeated these words like a prayer, hoping they would protect me from pain. I kept busy with small tasks around the house. I cleaned the windows, arranged flowers in a vase, and cooked meals that reminded me of happier times. These simple acts gave me a sense of control when my emotions felt too big to handle. When my family was around, I tried to smile and act as if nothing had changed. I laughed at Jacob's jokes and asked Anna about her day. I listened carefully when David spoke, but I did not ask too many questions. I wanted to avoid making things worse. Sometimes I caught myself watching them closely. I noticed the way David's eyes seemed tired, how Anna sometimes looked distracted, and how Jacob often stayed quiet when I was near. These small details made my heart ache, but I told myself they were just moments, nothing more. Late at night, when the house was silent, the feeling would return stronger. The doubts, the sadness, the fear. I tried to push those feelings deep inside, but they whispered to me when I was alone. I wondered if I was fooling myself. Was I pretending that everything was fine, when in reality, something was breaking apart? One evening, I found an old photo album in the living room. I opened it carefully and looked at the pictures. There were smiles frozen in time. Birthday, parties, family vacations, simple happy moments. I touched a picture of David as a small boy holding my hand. I wished I could turn back time. The memories made me want to protect my family from harm. I told myself I must be strong and not let fear take over. I reminded myself that families go through ups and downs. This was only a difficult time. We would get through it. But deep down, I knew I was ignoring more than just feelings. I was ignoring a warning I had heard clearly but did not want to face. I was choosing to look away from the truth, hoping it would disappear. One morning, Anna found me staring out of the window. She asked softly, "Mom, are you okay?" I forced a smile and said, "I am fine, dear." But I was not fine. I felt tired of pretending, and tired of waiting for answers. That day, I made a promise to myself. I would keep trying to ignore the warning a little longer. I would keep hoping for the best. But I also knew that someday I would have to face the truth, no matter how hard it might be. Until then, I would hold on to the memories of love and trust, and the small hope that things could change. There is a way people look at you when things are not quite right. It is subtle, almost invisible if you are not paying attention. But once you see it, you cannot unsee it. I noticed that look on David's face more and more. It was different from the warm, loving gaze I remembered from years ago. It was colder, guarded, and sometimes full of disappointment. One afternoon, David came to visit again. I had hoped this visit would bring us closer, but from the moment he entered the room, I felt a distance between us. He smiled politely, but his eyes did not meet mine. Instead, they seemed to search the room, avoiding any real connection. As we sat down for tea, I watched how he shifted uncomfortably in his chair. His hands trembled slightly, and he cleared his throat several times. When I asked about work, his answers were short and distant. Then I saw it, that look. It was a mixture of frustration and something I could not quite understand. It was as if he was angry, but he was hiding it. Trying not to show it, I remembered Susan's warning about paying attention to small signs. Now I understood what she meant. Later that evening, David stood by the window, looking out at the darkening sky. I joined him quietly, hoping to break the silence. "David," I said gently, "I want to understand. Please tell me what you are feeling." He did not turn to look at me. Instead, he said quietly, "Sometimes it feels like you do not see me anymore. Like I am just a stranger in this house." His words hit me hard. I felt a mix of sadness and guilt. Had I been so caught up in my own feelings that I did not see his pain? I reached out and took his hand. "I see you, David. I always have. And I always will." For a moment, he looked at me with surprise. Then, his eyes softened. The cold look faded, replaced by something more honest, vulnerability. But even as hope began to grow, I knew the way he looked at me had changed forever. That look carried years of unspoken feelings, disappointments, and fears. It was a look that told me we had much to heal. As the night grew darker, I thought about how important it is to see the people we love, not just with our eyes, but with our hearts. I promised myself to keep trying, no matter how hard it might. Tomorrow, I will ask David the question that I have been afraid to say aloud. It is a question that could change everything. I knew that the moment had come. The question weighed heavily in my heart, and I could no longer keep it inside. I needed to know. I needed to hear the truth from David's own lips. We sat together in the quiet living room. The soft light from the lamp made the shadows dance gently on the walls. Outside, the wind whispered through the trees. It was the kind of night that invites honesty, or at least, that is what I hoped. I looked at David. His eyes were tired but alert. I took a deep breath and asked, "David, is there something you are not telling me? Something I should know?" For a moment, he did not answer. The silence between us grew thick and heavy. I could feel my heart pounding in my chest. I wanted to reach out, to pull him close, but I waited. Finally, he spoke. His voice was low and quiet, almost a whisper. "Mom, it is hard to say. I do not want to hurt you, but yes, there is something." My heart tightened. I braced myself for what was coming. I knew this was a turning point. David looked away, then back at me. "I have been struggling with work, and with money," he said. "Things have not been as easy as I said. I felt a sharp pain in my chest. I wanted to comfort him, to tell him everything would be okay, but I waited for him to continue. He took a deep breath. I have also been feeling distant from you and the family. It is not because I do not love you. It is because I am afraid. Afraid of failing and disappointing. Everyone! Tears welled up in my eyes. I reached for his hand again and held it tightly. David, I do not want you to be afraid. You can tell me anything. I am here for you. He nodded, and I could see the relief in his eyes. For the first time in weeks, it felt like a real connection between us. But then, a shadow crossed his face. There is one more thing, he said hesitantly. I did not want to tell you because I thought it would only make things worse. But it has to come out. My breath caught. What is it? David looked down, then back up with a steady, "Hey, I made a mistake. A big one. I borrowed money from someone I should not have. I thought I could pay it back quickly, but now, I am not sure." I felt the room spin slightly. I did not know what to say. The truth was painful, but it was better than the silence. I squeezed his hand. Thank you for telling me. We will face this together. David looked at me with a mixture of gratitude and shame. I am sorry for not telling you sooner. I shook my head. We all make mistakes, David. What matters is that we face them honestly. We sat together in silence, the weight of the truth settling around us. I knew the road ahead would be difficult, but at least now, we could walk it together. That night, I realized that asking the truth was the first step toward healing. It was not easy. It was not simple, but it was necessary. Tomorrow, I will tell you about how the doubt grew stronger and began to take over my thoughts, keeping me awake at night. The moment David told me the truth, a strange calm settled over us. Yet, as I lay awake that night, the calm began to crack, and my mind became a storm of thoughts that I could not stop. I stared at the ceiling, the darkness pressing in on me, like a heavy blanket. My heart felt restless, and my thoughts ran in circles. I wondered how long David had been hiding his troubles from me. Why had he not trusted me sooner? Was I to blame for his silence? Every little detail of our conversation played again in my mind. His tired eyes, the way he hesitated before speaking, the shame that lingered in his voice. It was as if I was hearing a story that I did not want to hear, yet could not look away from. I thought about the money he had borrowed. Who was the person he owed? What danger might he be in? The questions kept coming, one after another, and none had answers. The unknown felt terrifying. Sleep would not come. My body was tired, but my mind refused to rest. I tried to focus on breathing slowly, but the thoughts rushed in like a river breaking through a dam. I felt alone, even though David was just in the next room. The walls felt thin, and yet a silence separated us. I wanted to reach out, to say something, anything that might make the fear go away, but the words stuck in my throat. In the early hours of the morning, I went to the kitchen and made a cup of tea. The warm steam calmed me for a moment. I looked out the window at the quiet street. The world was asleep, but my heart was wide awake. Remembered Susan's warning and her kind eyes. She had told me to trust my instincts, and my instincts were shouting that I needed to prepare myself for difficult days ahead. I thought about my family, David, Anna, and Jacob. How much did they really know about what was happening? Had I been the only one unaware of this secret burden? The thought hurt more than I wanted to admit. As the sun began to rise, I felt a strange mix of sadness and determination. Sadness for the pain my family was carrying alone, and determination to find a way through the darkness. I knew that tomorrow would be another day full of questions. Questions I was afraid to ask, but needed answers to. Questions that might change everything. I sat quietly with my tea, feeling the first light of morning touch my face. I whispered to myself, I cannot stop thinking, but I must find peace. Even in the midst of doubt and fear, I held on to a small hope. Hope that the truth, as hard as it might be, would lead us to healing. The rain was falling softly outside my window as I sat alone in the living room. The quiet sound of raindrops tapping against the glass seemed to echo the quiet ache inside me. It was a pain without noise or anger, but deep and steady. A quiet pain that filled the empty spaces of my heart. I did not want to cry, but the tears came anyway. They slipped down my cheeks slowly, like the rain on the window. I felt so tired. Tired of pretending, tired of worrying, tired of the silence between David and me. I thought about how life had changed. Just a few weeks ago, everything seemed normal. We laughed together, shared meals, and dreamed about the future. Now, those simple moments felt distant and fragile, like glass about to break. The pain was not just about David's secret or the money he owed. It was about trust, about feeling close to someone and then suddenly feeling far away. It was about hoping for honesty and getting silence instead. I sat quietly, watching the rain as it created tiny rivers on the window pane. Each drop seemed to carry a memory, a feeling, or a question I could not answer. Why had David kept this from me? Did he think I would judge him? Or was he protecting me from pain? The room felt cold, even though the heater was on. I wrapped a shawl around my shoulders and hugged myself, wishing I could hold on to something real and warm. Sometimes pain is not loud. It does not shout or scream. It is a soft, steady presence that stays with you, even in the brightest moments. It makes you feel small and lost. I thought about calling Anna or Susan, someone to talk to, but the words stuck inside me. How could I explain this quiet pain? How could I say that I was scared and sad and unsure of what to do next? Instead, I sat there and let the tears fall. I let the quiet pain fill the room, because sometimes pain needs space to breathe. As the rain continued, I thought about what healing might look like. Could it begin with just this moment of sadness? Could I find strength in being still and honest with myself? I realized that I did not have to have all the answers right now. It was okay to feel pain and to take time to heal. The night passed, slowly. The rain stopped, and the first light of dawn began to peek through the clouds. I felt a small flicker of hope, like a candle burning softly in the dark. I whispered to myself, this pain is part of the journey. I will carry it, and I will grow. Tomorrow, I will find the courage to speak again, to ask for the answers I need, to face the silence with strength. For now, I will hold on to the quiet pain, knowing that it is a sign of love and loss, and of the hope that comes after. The morning light slipped through the curtains, casting a soft glow across the room. I woke with a heavy heart, knowing that today would be different. The quiet pain from last night still lingered, but it was joined by a new feeling, a strong need for answers. I could no longer live with the silence between David and me. I needed to understand everything, no matter how difficult it might be. David was already downstairs when I came into the kitchen. He looked tired, but there was a strange calm in his eyes. I knew that he felt the weight of what we both needed to face. For a moment, we just stood there looking at each other. The room felt full of unspoken words. I took a deep breath and said, David, I need you to be honest with me. I need to hear everything. No more hiding. No more pretending. He nodded slowly, as if preparing himself for a difficult journey. "I will try," he said quietly. We sat down at the table, and I waited. The silence was heavy, but I was determined. I could feel my heart beating fast, but I forced myself to stay calm. David began to speak. He told me about the pressures at work, how things had become harder and harder. He talked about the late nights, the missed deadlines, and the growing debt that felt impossible to manage. His voice shook at times, and I could see the fear in his eyes. "I thought I could fix it," he said. "I thought I could handle everything on my own." But it only got worse. I reached across the table and took his hand. "You do not have to do this alone, David. We are family. We face things together." He looked at me, surprised but grateful. "I was afraid you would be disappointed. I was afraid you would think less of me." I shook my head. "I do not judge you. I love you. But I need honesty. That is the only way we can move forward." Then, he told me about the person he owed money to, a man who was not kind, a man who did not forgive easily. I felt a chill run down my spine. The situation was more serious than I had imagined. David explained how the debt was growing, how the man had started to call and send messages. He was scared. I could understand why. As he spoke, I felt a mix of emotions: sadness for his pain, anger at the situation, and a fierce determination to protect my family. I said firmly, "We will find a way out of this, together. But from now on, we must be honest with each other." David nodded again, and for the first time in weeks, I saw a small spark of hope in his eyes. We spent the rest of the morning talking quietly, making plans. I promised to help him, to support him. It was the first step toward healing, but even as we spoke, I knew there would be challenges ahead. The road would not be easy. Trust that had been broken would take time to rebuild. Later that day, I found myself alone in the garden, thinking about everything. The pain was still there, but now it was mixed with something new. Courage. I whispered to myself. I need an answer, and now I have it. The truth is hard, but it is the only way. I felt a quiet strength growing inside me. I was ready to face whatever came next. Tomorrow, I will share how, despite my efforts, the truth began to hurt more than I expected, how the betrayal became clear, and how I struggled to hold on. The weight of the truth settled over me like a thick fog. After all the talking, all the hoping, I finally understood the full picture, and it was more painful than I could have imagined. David did not just owe money. He had been hiding something, deeper. Something he was too ashamed to say out loud. As he spoke, the pieces came together like a broken puzzle slowly fitting back. He told me about the bad decisions he had made, the friends who were not really friends, and the mistakes that kept piling up. I listened, heart aching, as he admitted how he had borrowed money not only to pay bills, but to cover losses from risky choices. I wanted to protect you, he said quietly. I thought if you knew, you would leave. I was afraid I would lose everything. You, Anna, Jacob, my family. His words hit me hard. The man I loved was hurting, but he was also afraid to be honest with me. The trust we once had was cracked, and the cracks were growing. I looked at him and saw the pain behind his eyes. I wanted to reach out, to hold him close. But a new feeling stirred inside me, a mix of sadness and anger. How had we come to this point? How had the silence and lies built a wall between us? The truth was no longer just a secret. It was a barrier that we had to face together or let destroy us. I asked the questions I had held inside for days. Why did you not ask for help sooner? Why did you carry this alone? David's voice broke. I thought I was protecting you, but maybe I was just protecting myself from shame. I could feel tears welling up, but I stayed strong. We are a family. We should face problems together. Secrets only make them worse. We sat in silence for a long time, the weight of his confession filling the room. I realized that understanding, the truth was only the first step. The real challenge was what came next. I knew that forgiveness would be difficult. Trust would take time to rebuild. But I also knew that turning away now would mean losing everything we had left. That evening, I made a decision. I would not let this pain break me or our family. I would find the strength to heal, to forgive, and to move forward. Even if the road was long and uncertain, before I went to bed, I looked at David and said softly, "Thank you for telling me. I am scared, but I want us to be honest from now on." He nodded, relief mixed with fear in his eyes. "I will do better. For you, for Anna, for Jacob, for us." As I lay in bed, I thought about the future, not the perfect future I had dreamed of, but the real one we would build together. It would not be easy. There would be pain, hard days, and moments of doubt. But there would also be hope, love, and the chance to start again, I whispered to myself. I finally understand. Now, I must find the strength to heal. Tomorrow, I will tell you how I made the hardest choice, to step away, to protect my heart, and to find peace in the silence. The moment I decided to walk away, my heart felt as if it was breaking into pieces. It was not a choice I made lightly, but one I knew was necessary. Sometimes, loving someone means knowing when to step back, not out of anger, but out of self-respect, and the need to protect your own soul. David and I had shared many years together. We had built a life full of memories, laughter, and dreams. Yet, beneath it all, the cracks in our trust had grown wider. His secrets had hurt me deeply, and I realized that healing could not happen if I stayed where the pain lived. That morning, I packed a small bag, not because I wanted to leave forever, but because I needed space. Space to breathe, to think, and to find myself again. I did not tell David where I was going. I just needed to be alone, away from the heavy silence that had settled in our home. Driving away, I felt a strange mix of relief and sorrow. The city faded behind me as I drove toward a quiet place by the lake, a place I had visited as a child, where the world always seemed softer and simpler. When I arrived, the air smelled fresh and cool. The lake was calm, reflecting the sky like a mirror. I sat on a bench by the shore and watched the water ripple gently with the breeze. For the first time in weeks, I felt a small sense of peace. Walking away was not about giving up. It was about choosing to heal. I needed time to understand what I wanted and what I deserved. I wanted to stop carrying the weight of David's mistakes on my shoulders. I remembered the advice from my friend Susan. Sometimes, stepping away is the strongest thing you can do. It gives you space to heal and see things clearly. I realized she was right. The quiet lake was a mirror for my heart, calm, but ready to move forward. I thought about Anna and Jacob. How would they feel? I worried about hurting them, but I also knew that being honest with myself was the best way to be honest with them. They needed a mother and grandmother who was whole and strong. That evening, I called Anna. My voice was steady but soft. I explained that I needed some time alone to think and to heal. She was quiet for a moment, then said, "Mom, I understand. Take all the time you need. We love you." Her words warmed my heart. Even in this difficult time, our family still held love. Days passed. I walked by the lake every morning. I wrote in my journal the thoughts and feelings I could not say aloud. Writing helped me find clarity. It was like peeling back layers of pain to find the real me underneath. I thought about the future. Could I forgive David? Could I trust him again? These questions did not have easy answers. But I knew I had to start somewhere. I told myself, I am not running away from love. I am running toward healing. At night, I slept with the sound of water nearby, its gentle rhythm soothing my restless mind. I allowed myself to feel the pain without judgment. I cried when I needed to. I laughed when memories brought joy. One afternoon, as I watched the sun set over the lake, a new feeling came. Hope. It was small and fragile, but real. I smiled for the first time in weeks, not because the pain was gone, but because I had chosen to face it. Walking away was not the end. It was the beginning of a new chapter, a chapter where I would find my own strength and reclaim my happiness. Before I returned home, I wrote a letter to David. I told him that I loved him, but that I needed time to heal. I asked for honesty and patience. I promised that if he was willing to change, I would be here. I folded the letter carefully and kept it in my bag. When I finally drove back home, the house felt different, quieter, but filled with the possibility of new beginnings. I knew the road ahead would not be easy, but I was ready to walk it. Tomorrow, I will share how the pain stayed even after I walked away, how the wounds lingered, and how I learned to live with them while finding small moments of peace. Even though I had walked away from the house, the pain stayed with me. It was not something that left quickly or easily. Instead, it settled deep inside, like a quiet shadow following me everywhere. I had hoped that distance would make the hurt disappear, but I soon learned that some wounds take time to heal. The days after I returned home were the hardest. I moved through my routines, but my heart felt heavy. The empty spaces around me reminded me of what had changed, and what I had lost. Sometimes, I would catch myself reaching for the phone to call David, only to stop and remember the reasons why I needed to be strong. At night, the silence was loud. The house felt cold, even with the lights on. I would lie awake, staring at the ceiling, thinking about the moments we shared, the good and the bad. The memories came like waves, crashing over me without warning. I found it difficult to explain this pain to others. Friends said, "Time will heal everything," but it did not feel that simple. The pain was not something I could fix with words or wishes. It was something I had to live with while I figured out how to move forward. One afternoon, I sat by the window with a cup of tea. Rain began to fall softly outside, and I watched the drops slide down the glass. It was a quiet moment, but inside, my mind was loud with questions and doubts. Why had things ended this way? Could I have done something differently? Was there still hope for us, or was this truly the end? I realized that these questions had no easy answers. The pain was not just about David or the broken trust. It was also about losing the future I had imagined, the family I had hoped to protect, and the sense of safety I had taken for granted. Yet, even in the pain, I found small moments of strength. When I woke each morning, I reminded myself that this was part of my journey. I was learning to accept that healing takes time. I was learning to be patient with myself. Slowly, I began to find ways to ease the pain. I started journaling again, writing down my feelings without judgment. Sometimes I wrote letters to David that I never sent. These words helped me release some of the sadness and anger inside. I also reached out to Susan, my close friend, more often. Talking to her gave me comfort and clarity. She listened without trying to fix things. She reminded me that it was okay to feel broken sometimes, and that strength does not mean pretending to be okay. One evening, Susan said, "Pain is like the rain you see outside. It might soak you for a while, but it also helps the flowers grow." Her words stayed with me. I started to see that pain, while difficult, could lead to growth if I allowed it. I took small steps each day to care for myself. I cooked simple meals, went for walks in the fresh air, and read books that brought me hope. I tried to focus on the present moment instead of worrying about the future. Though the pain stayed, I began to understand that it did not have to control me. I could live with it and still find moments of peace and joy. One night, as I looked out at the stars, I whispered to myself, "The pain stays, but so do I." It was a quiet promise, a promise to keep going, even when the path was hard. Tomorrow, I will share how I missed the past, the happy times, and how remembering those moments helped me find the courage to keep moving forward. The past is a strange place. It can feel warm and comforting, like a soft blanket wrapped around you on a cold day. But it can also be painful, reminding you of what has changed and what you have lost. For me, the past was full of memories, some bright and joyful, others shadowed by regret and sorrow. I found myself thinking about those times more and more. The simple moments that had once seemed ordinary now felt precious and rare. I missed the way things used to be. I missed the laughter, the shared meals, the quiet evenings with David and the children. One memory came back clearly. A summer afternoon in the garden, years ago. Anna was chasing butterflies, her laughter ringing through the air. David was sitting on the porch, reading the newspaper but smiling at her. I was planting flowers, feeling the warm sun on my face and the soft earth under my hands. It was a perfect moment, full of peace and happiness. Remembering that day made my heart ache. How had we let time and distance grow between us? How had we allowed silence to replace those easy conversations? I realized that missing the past was not just about the good times. It was also about missing the feeling of being connected. To family, to love, to myself. Some nights, I would pull out old photo albums and look at the pictures. Faces smiled back at me, frozen in time. I traced their outlines with my fingers, feeling both comfort and sadness. Those moments were gone, but they were still a part of me. Sometimes the memories made me cry. Other times they made me smile. Both feelings were real and important. I knew I could not live in the past forever. The present was waiting for me, with all its challenges and possibilities. But I also knew that the past held lessons and strength that I needed to carry forward. One afternoon, while walking in the park, I saw a mother with her children playing. Their joy was infectious. I stopped and watched them, feeling a mix of longing and hope. I wanted that happiness again. I wanted to believe it was still possible. I talked about these feelings with Susan. She reminded me that it was okay to miss the past, as long as I did not let it stop me from living today. "Your past is like the roots of a tree," she said. "It gives you strength to grow, even when the wind blows hard." Her words gave me comfort. I understood that I could hold onto my memories and still reach for the future. That evening I wrote in my journal, "I miss the past, but I am learning to live with the changes. The love we had is not gone. It lives inside me, guiding me toward healing." I also thought about David. Could we find a way back to each other? Could we build new memories that would one day be part of the past I missed? I did not have the answers yet, but I knew that missing the past was the beginning of something new, the desire to heal and to hope again. As I closed my journal, I felt a small spark inside. It was fragile but real. the spark of courage to face whatever came. Next. Tomorrow, I will share how I talked to a friend who helped me find healing and slowly brought trust back into my life. After weeks of carrying the heavy weight of sadness and confusion, I finally reached out to my friend Susan. She had always been a quiet source of comfort, the kind of person who listened more than she spoke, and whose presence made difficult days seem a little less dark. That afternoon, I found myself dialing her number, my fingers trembling with a mixture of hope and fear. When Susan answered, her warm voice felt like a gentle hug. "Helen, it is so good to hear your voice," she said. "Tell me what is on your heart." I took a deep breath and began to speak. Words that I had held inside for too long poured out. The loneliness, the hurt, the doubts, and the questions that kept swirling in my mind. I spoke of the betrayal that had cut deep, of the nights spent awake, and of the fear that I might never feel whole again. Susan did not interrupt. She let me speak until my voice cracked, until the tears I had held back finally spilled over. Then, when I was silent, she gently said, "Helen, I cannot take away your pain, but I am here to walk beside you through it. You do not have to face this alone." Her words touched me deeply. For the first time in a long while, I felt that I was not isolated in my suffering. There was someone who understood and cared. Someone who would help me carry this burden. Over the next few weeks, our conversations became a lifeline. Susan encouraged me to express my feelings honestly, to not hide behind a brave face. She reminded me that healing was a process, slow, sometimes painful, but necessary. She said, "Trust is like a glass. Once it cracks, it may never be the same, but sometimes with care and patience it can still hold water." That image stayed with me. I thought about my relationship with David. Fragile, but maybe not beyond repair. One day, Susan invited me to meet her at a small cafe. Sitting across from her, with the gentle hum of conversation around us, I felt safe enough to share even more of my fears. "I do not know if I can trust him again," I confessed. "I am afraid of being hurt once more." Susan nodded knowingly. "It is okay to be afraid. Trust is earned slowly. You do not have to decide everything today. Just take small steps." Her wisdom was comforting. I realized that I had been trying to force myself to heal too quickly. I needed patience, with David, with myself, and with the situation. Susan also helped me see that I had to rebuild trust in myself. I had to listen to my own feelings, set boundaries, and believe in my worth. "I deserve kindness," I told her quietly. "Even from myself." "Yes," she said, smiling. "And that kindness will guide you as you decide what comes." Next, through our talks, I began to see small signs of hope. I felt less alone. The heavy fog of sadness started to lift, replaced by a quiet strength growing inside me. Susan also suggested simple ways to care for myself. Taking walks, writing in my journal, and doing things that brought me joy. These small acts became anchors in the storm. One afternoon, while walking in the park, I thought about how far I had come. The pain was still there, but it no longer controlled me. I was learning to live with it, to accept it as part of my story. I realized that talking to a friend had given me something precious. The courage to face the future, no matter what it held. That evening, I wrote in my journal, "Today, I feel a little lighter. I am beginning to trust again, not only others, but myself." I knew the road ahead was still long and uncertain, but for the first time in weeks, I felt ready to take the next step. Tomorrow, I will share how I said goodbye to a dream, to a part of myself, and how letting go opened a door to new beginnings. Saying goodbye was the hardest thing I ever had to do. It was not just about leaving someone behind. It was about letting go of dreams, memories, and a future I had once believed in with all my heart. The day I made the decision, I felt a mix of sadness, fear, and a strange kind of relief. It was like closing a chapter I had been holding on to for too long. For weeks, I had been caught between hope and reality. Part of me wanted to believe that things could change, that trust could be rebuilt, that love could heal the wounds. But deep inside, I knew that some things could not be undone. The truth was clear. It was time to say goodbye. I remember the morning vividly. The sunlight filtered softly through the curtains, casting warm patterns on the floor. I sat at the kitchen table, my hands wrapped around a cup of tea, trying to steady my thoughts. I knew that this moment was important. It was a turning point. I took out my journal and began to write a letter to David. Words came slowly at first, then with more certainty. I wrote about the pain I felt, the love I still carried, and the reasons why I had to walk away. I did not send the letter. It was for me, to help me say what I could not speak aloud. After I finished, I stood up and looked around the house. Every corner held a memory, some joyful, some painful. I whispered goodbye to each one, as if saying farewell to the pieces of my past. When David came home that evening, I was ready. I told him gently but firmly that I needed to move on. I explained that I loved him once, but now I had to choose myself. He did not say much. There was silence, heavy and full of unspoken words. I felt his sadness, but I also felt my own strength growing. For the first time, I was standing up for myself, not out of anger, but out of love and respect for who I was. Saying goodbye did not mean forgetting. It meant accepting the truth and allowing myself to heal. It meant opening space for new possibilities. The days that followed were not easy. There were moments of doubt and loneliness, but there were also moments of peace. I began to see that by letting go, I was freeing myself. I spent time alone, reflecting on who I was and who I wanted to become. I embraced the quiet, allowing it to fill me with calm instead of fear. Friends reached out, offering support and kindness. Susan was there, reminding me that I was brave and worthy. I learned that goodbye is not just an ending. It is also a beginning. It is the start of a new journey toward self-discovery and hope. One evening, as I watched the sunset, I whispered to myself, I said goodbye, but I did not lose. I found myself. This goodbye was not the end of my story. It was the start of a new chapter, written with courage and grace. Tomorrow, I will share how I lived with the pain after saying goodbye, and how I found small moments of joy even in the hardest times. The quiet in my home felt different after I said goodbye. It was no longer filled with arguments or sadness, but with silence. A calm, almost peaceful silence. At first, that silence was uncomfortable. I had spent so many years surrounded by people and noise that being alone felt strange. Yet slowly, I began to understand what it truly meant to be alone. Being alone was not the same as feeling lonely. Loneliness is a sharp, painful emptiness, like a room without light. Being alone, on the other hand, was a chance to be with myself, to listen, to heal, and to grow. I realized that I had been running from myself for a long time, distracted by family troubles and unspoken fears. Now, with no one else to answer to, I had to face my own thoughts. Some days, the silence was heavy. I would sit by the window, watching the world move on outside, and feel a deep ache in my chest. It was the ache of loss, of dreams that had not come true, of relationships that had changed, and of the person I once thought I was. But other days, the silence was a gift. It gave me space to breathe and to think clearly. I began to enjoy simple pleasures again, a cup of tea in the morning, a good book, the sound of birds singing. These small moments became anchors, helping me stay grounded. I also discovered the power of reflection. Without distractions, I could look inside and see my true feelings. I allowed myself to grieve, to be angry, and to feel scared. I learned that emotions are not enemies to fight, but signals to understand. Being alone gave me time to reconnect with my passions and dreams. I started painting again, something I had not done in years. The colors and shapes on the canvas were a way to express what words could not. Each brushstroke felt like a step toward healing. I also wrote letters to myself, reminding me of my worth and strength. I read them whenever doubt crept in. I told myself, "You are enough. You are deserving of love and happiness." Of course, there were difficult nights when loneliness tried to creep back in. On those evenings, I would call Susan or write in my journal. Sharing my thoughts helped me feel less isolated. Slowly, I realized that being alone was helping me become stronger. It was teaching me to trust myself and to find peace without needing approval from others. I did not rush this process. Healing is never a straight path. There were days when I wanted to give up, but I kept going because I knew that each step forward was a victory. One afternoon, while sitting in the garden, I felt a deep sense of calm. The sun warmed my face, and the breeze whispered through the leaves. In that moment, I understood that being alone was not a punishment. It was a chance to find my own voice and to love myself fully. I smiled quietly, feeling grateful for this new chapter. I was alone. Yes, but I was not lost. I was learning to be whole. Tomorrow, I will share how this time alone changed me, how I saw myself in a new light, and how I began to embrace the woman I was becoming. The woman I saw in the mirror was not the same woman I had been before. That truth settled slowly but surely in my heart. I was changed, not just by the pain I had endured, but by the strength I had found in the quiet moments alone. I was no longer the frightened, uncertain person who had been caught in the storm of betrayal and confusion. I had become someone new, someone stronger, wiser, and more certain. It did not happen overnight. Change rarely does. It was a gentle, steady transformation that unfolded day by day, step by step. I noticed it first in small ways. The way I held my head a little higher. The way my voice no longer trembled when I spoke my mind. The way I stopped apologizing for needing space or time for myself. I was learning to stand firmly on my own 2 feet. I was discovering that my worth was not tied to anyone else's approval or love. That was a powerful lesson, one I had to remind myself of often. One morning, as I brewed my tea, I caught a glimpse of myself in the kitchen window. The reflection showed a woman who looked calm and confident. I smiled quietly and thought, I am not the same. I am better. The changes went deeper than appearance. I felt a new sense of peace inside, a quiet confidence that whispered, you can face whatever comes next. I was no longer afraid of being alone or of the unknown. I had been through the fire and had come out stronger. At times, I still felt sadness. Healing does not erase pain completely. But now, the sadness did not control me. I could hold it gently, like a friend who needed comfort. Rather than a storm that threatened to drown me, I also noticed that my relationships were different. I was more honest with the people I cared about. I set boundaries kindly but firmly. I spoke from my heart, without fear of judgment, and I listened more deeply, with compassion and understanding. This new maturity brought a calmness to my life. I was no longer chasing after things that did not serve me. I was focusing on what truly mattered. My happiness, my health, my dreams. One afternoon, Susan and I took a long walk in the park. As we talked, I realized how much I had grown. She looked at me with warmth and said, "Helen, you have changed. You shine differently now." I nodded. I have learned to love myself in ways I never did before. That moment was a turning point. I understood that I had healed not by forgetting my past, but by accepting it fully. I had embraced the lessons it taught me and used them to build a better future. Being not the same meant I was free. Free from fear, free from doubt, free from the need to prove myself to others. I was no longer defined by what had happened to me, but by who I chose to be. I began to see my life as a journey, one filled with challenges, yes, but also with hope and possibility. Every day was a chance to grow, to learn, and to live fully. In the evenings, when I sat quietly with a book or a cup of tea, I felt a deep gratitude for this new self. I whispered, "Thank you for being brave. Thank you for never giving up." This woman, this stronger version of me, was ready for whatever came next. I was ready to face the future with an open heart and a steady spirit. Tomorrow, I will share a small moment of hope that brightened my days and reminded me that even in darkness, there is light. After so many long days filled with silence and sadness, a small light appeared in my life. It was not a bright, blinding light, but a gentle glow. Quiet, soft, and warm. This small light gave me hope when I thought all hope was lost. It reminded me that even after the darkest nights, the dawn always comes. One morning, I decided to take a walk in the nearby park. The air was crisp, and the sun was just rising, casting golden beams over the trees and paths. I walked slowly, feeling the cool breeze on my face, and listened to the soft sounds of birds waking up. It was peaceful, the kind of peace I had not felt in a very long time. As I walked, I noticed a small flower growing through a crack in the pavement. It was tiny and delicate, but it stood tall and bright. That little flower was a small light, in the middle of something hard and broken. I smiled at it and thought, if this flower can grow here, maybe I can grow too. That moment stayed with me. It was a simple reminder that life could find a way even in the hardest places. I realized that I did not need to wait for big changes or miracles to feel better. Sometimes, hope comes in small, quiet moments. Back at home, I started to look for those small lights in my everyday life. I noticed the warmth of the morning sun through my window. I felt joy when I heard laughter from children playing outside. I found comfort in the softness of my favorite blanket at night. Each small light helped me heal a little more. It was like putting together tiny pieces of a broken heart, slowly but surely. One evening, I decided to invite Susan over for tea. We sat together in my living room, talking quietly. She told me stories about her own struggles and how she had found hope, in small things too. Her words were like a gentle light, showing me that I was not alone. Susan said, "Helen, sometimes we think we need big changes to feel happy, but often it is the little things that make the biggest difference." Her words stayed with me. I began to notice the small acts of kindness around me, a smile from a neighbor, a kind message from a friend, the scent of fresh coffee in the morning. These small lights began to fill my life with color and warmth. They made me feel safe and cared for. I was learning to appreciate the present moment and to find joy in simple things. Slowly, I started to dream again. Not big dreams that scared me, but small hopes that felt real and reachable. I dreamed of painting a new picture, of writing a short story, of taking a short trip to the countryside. That small light inside me was growing. It gave me the courage to keep moving forward, even when things felt hard. I understood that healing was not about forgetting the past. It was about finding strength in the present and hope for the future. One afternoon, while sitting by the window with my journal, I wrote these words. Today, I choose to see the small light. Today, I choose hope. That small light was my new guide. It showed me the way through the darkness and reminded me that life, no matter how difficult, is always worth living. I smiled softly, feeling a quiet joy that warmed my heart. The small light was not just outside me, it was inside me too. Tomorrow, I will share how that small light helped me begin again, and how I started to build a new life filled with care and hope. Starting over felt like stepping into a new world. Unfamiliar, a little scary, but filled with quiet promise. After everything I had been through, I knew I could not go back to the person I had been before. The pain, the betrayal, and the loneliness had changed me deeply. Yet that small light I found in the quiet moments gave me the courage to try again, to begin again. My first steps were simple. I focused on caring for myself in ways I had forgotten. I made sure to eat well and rest enough. I took daily walks outside, letting the fresh air clear my mind. I returned to painting, something I had loved in my younger years, but had set aside for too long. Every brushstroke felt like a small act of hope. I started to create new routines, gentle rhythms that brought me peace. In the mornings, I drank tea slowly while watching the sunrise. In the evenings, I wrote in my journal, pouring out my thoughts and dreams onto the page. These small habits helped me feel grounded and connected to myself. I also began to reach out to the world again. Slowly, I reconnected with old friends and made new ones. Sometimes I joined a local art class or a book club. It was not easy at first. My heart still carried fear and doubt. But every kind smile and warm conversation helped me feel less alone. One day, I signed up for a short course on creative writing. I was nervous walking into the classroom, unsure if I still had the words or the confidence. But as I listened to the teacher and shared my own stories, I felt something open inside me. It was as if a door I thought was closed forever had cracked open just a little. Writing gave me a new way to understand my life and express my feelings. I found joy in shaping words and sharing pieces of my heart. It was healing to tell my story, not to others yet, but to myself. With each new day, I felt more alive. The weight of the past began to lift, replaced by a quiet excitement for the future. I was learning to be patient with myself and to celebrate small victories. Of course, there were moments when fear and sadness returned. Sometimes I worried that I would fail again or that the pain would come back stronger. But I learned to face those feelings with kindness, reminding myself that healing is not perfect or straight. I took one day at a time and held on to the small light that had guided me so far. That light was now a flame, steady and bright, warming my heart and leading me forward. I began to dream in new ways. I imagined a life where I was free from fear, where I could share my art and my stories with others. I pictured days filled with laughter, friendship, and peace. These dreams felt possible now, not distant or impossible. One afternoon, as I sat painting in the sunlit room, I realized I was no longer waiting for permission to be happy. I was giving myself that permission every day. I smiled quietly to myself and whispered, "This is the beginning, not the end." Tomorrow, I will share how someone from my past tried to come back into my life and how I faced that moment with a new heart and strength. I never expected to hear from him again. After all the hurt and silence, I thought that chapter of my life was closed forever. Yet, one afternoon, my phone rang with a number I did not recognize. My heart froze for a moment before I answered. It was him. His voice sounded different, softer, quieter, almost apologetic. He said, "Helen, I have been thinking about you a lot. I want to talk. Can we meet?" I did not know what to say at first. A flood of emotions rushed through me. Anger, sadness, confusion, even a strange hope. Could I trust him after all that had happened? Was this a chance to heal, or just the beginning of more pain? For days I struggled with the decision. I talked to Susan, who listened carefully. "Helen," she said gently, "you must think about what is best for you. You do not owe him anything." Her words gave me strength. I realized that I had the power to choose. I could open the door, or I could keep it closed. And whatever I decided, I would protect my heart. Finally, I agreed to meet him in a quiet cafe near the park. The place was peaceful, full of soft light and calm energy. When he arrived, I saw a man who looked tired but hopeful. He reached out his hand, and I took it, carefully, but without fear. We talked for hours. He explained why he had left, why he had not been honest, and how sorry he was for the pain he caused. His words were full of regret, but also of a desire to make things right. I listened closely, but I did not promise anything. Instead, I asked questions that mattered to me. I wanted to know if he had truly changed, if he respected the person I was now. At times, it was hard to keep my emotions in check. Old memories surfaced like waves, threatening to pull me under. But I stayed strong. I was not the same woman I had been before. I had learned to protect myself and to value my own feelings. After we parted, I felt a strange mix of relief and sadness. I had faced a difficult moment with courage, but the future was still uncertain. I knew I had to be patient and trust my instincts. In the days that followed, I thought deeply about what I wanted. I realized that forgiveness and reconciliation were not the same thing. I could forgive him for the past without giving him control over my future. I also understood that healing takes time. I did not need to rush into decisions or rush to forget what had happened. I could take things slowly and carefully. One evening, as I sat by the window, I wrote in my journal, "I am not afraid to face the past, but I will never lose sight of my worth." That night, I slept peacefully for the first time in a long time. I knew that no matter what happened next, I was stronger than before. I was ready to face the challenges with a heart that was open but protected. Tomorrow I will share how I responded to his attempt to come back and how I embraced my new self with calm and clarity. I am different now. I feel it deep inside my bones, in the way I hold myself and the way I think about the world. The woman I was before, full of doubts, fears, and silent pain, has changed. She is still there, but she is no longer the one who controls my life. When he tried to come back, I did not react the way I once would have. I did not cry or beg. I did not lose myself in hope or fear. Instead, I listened carefully, spoke honestly, and kept my heart guarded. That was the biggest difference. I was stronger. I was wiser. We met again, this time in my home. I prepared tea and made sure the room was calm and quiet. As he spoke, I noticed how much I had learned to trust my own feelings. I asked questions without fear. I told him clearly what I needed to hear and what I refused to accept. He was surprised, perhaps even a little uncomfortable. I saw the hesitation in his eyes. He realized that I was not the same woman he had known. I had grown. I had healed. Said, "I am grateful for your words, but I need more than apologies. I need respect. I need honesty. And I need to protect myself." He nodded slowly. "I understand, Helen. I want to be honest with you from now on. But I knew that trust is not built with words alone. It takes time and actions." I told him, "I will watch what you do, not just what you say." For the first time, I felt calm in my heart. I was not rushing to fix or save anything. I was simply choosing myself. In the days after, I spent time reflecting on my journey. I wrote in my journal about how far I had come. I wrote about the pain I had felt and the strength I had found. The words flowed easily now, like a river that had finally found its path. I realized that my past mistakes and heartaches were part of who I was, but they did not define me. I had learned to see my own worth, even when others had ignored it. I had learned to speak up for myself, even when it was hard. Most importantly, I learned to love myself in a new way. Not the perfect, flawless love that fairy tales promise, but a real, patient, and kind love. The kind of love that says, "You are enough. You are strong. You are worthy." This change was not sudden. It was slow, like the turning of seasons. It came from quiet moments alone, and from the support of friends. It came from facing my fears and not running away. It came from choosing to keep going, even when the road was hard. I am different now. I do not need anyone else to complete me or give me value. I am whole on my own. Of course, I still have moments of doubt or sadness. That is human. But I no longer let those moments control me. I welcome them, understand them, and then gently let them go. One afternoon, as I looked at myself in the mirror, I smiled. Not because I was perfect, but because I was proud. Proud of the woman I had become. I said softly, "Helen, you are brave. You are enough. You are ready for the next chapter. Tomorrow, I will share the story of how I made a peaceful but powerful decision, one that changed my life forever." Choosing myself was the most important decision I have ever made. It was not a loud or dramatic moment, but a quiet and steady choice that grew inside me over time. After years of putting others first, of bending to their wishes and forgetting my own needs, I finally understood that I must be my own priority. The day I made this decision, I woke up feeling calm and clear. The weight I had carried for so long felt lighter, as if a fog had lifted from my mind. I looked at my reflection in the mirror and saw a woman who had survived storms and pain, but was still standing strong. It was not easy to choose myself. Old habits whispered doubts in my ear. I worried about what others would think. I worried about being alone. But I knew that these fears were just stories my mind told me to keep me safe in the past. Now, I was ready to step into the truth. Began by setting boundaries. I said no to things that drained my energy or made me feel small. I stopped apologizing for needing time and space. I started speaking honestly about my feelings, even when it was uncomfortable. At first, this felt strange, like learning a new language. But each time I stood up for myself, I grew stronger. I also embraced my passions again. I painted more often, letting my emotions flow through colors and shapes. I wrote stories about my life and my dreams, finding joy in creating something meaningful. These acts of self-care were not selfish. They were necessary for my healing. Choosing myself meant accepting that I cannot control others. I cannot change how people treat me, but I can choose how I respond. I stopped trying to fix broken relationships that only brought me pain. Instead, I focused on nurturing connections that made me feel valued and loved. Sometimes, this choice meant letting go. Letting go of people who hurt me, of expectations that no longer fit, and of the past that tried to hold me back. Letting go was hard, like releasing a heavy stone from my chest. But with each release, I felt freer. I also learned to be patient with myself. Choosing myself is not a one-time event. It is a continuous practice. Some days are easier than others. Sometimes I fall back into old patterns. But I remind myself gently, you are choosing yourself again. One morning, I wrote in my journal, I choose my happiness, my peace, and my dreams. I am worthy of love and respect, especially from myself. That day, I felt a deep sense of peace. I knew that no matter what challenges come my way, I have the strength to face them because I am on my own side. Choosing myself has changed everything. I feel lighter, more confident, and more alive. I see the world with new eyes, eyes that are kind, curious, and full of hope. I am not perfect, and I do not need to be. I am enough just as I am. Tomorrow, I will share a story about a new day in my life, a day filled with calm, courage, and a quiet smile that means I survived. A new day arrived like a gentle sunrise, slowly spreading light across my life. It was not the kind of day that changed everything at once, but rather a quiet, steady beginning, the kind that grows stronger with each breath. I woke up feeling calm, something I had not felt in a long time. My heart was lighter, and my mind clearer. The morning air was fresh and cool when I stepped outside. I took a deep breath, feeling the wind softly touch my face. For the first time in a long time, I smiled, not because I had forgotten the past, but because I had survived it. That smile was quiet but powerful, a secret celebration of my strength and courage. I made my way to the kitchen and prepared a simple breakfast. As I poured tea into my favorite cup, I thought about how much had changed. The pain I had carried for years was still there, like a shadow at the edge of my vision, but it no longer controlled me. I could see it without fear. I could hold it, gently, and let it be. The day moved slowly, filled with small moments that felt meaningful. I opened my journal and wrote about my feelings. I painted a few colors on a blank canvas, not worrying about the outcome, but enjoying the act of creation. I called Susan, and we spoke for a long time, sharing laughter and quiet thoughts. Later, I took a walk in the park near my home. The trees were tall and strong, their leaves dancing in the breeze. I watched children playing and couples holding hands. I felt connected to the world around me in a way I had not before. It was as if I was seeing life with new eyes, eyes that were patient, kind, and hopeful. That evening, I sat by the window, watching the sky turn pink and orange. The day was ending, but a new chapter was beginning. I thought about the journey I had taken, the pain, the tears, the moments of doubt and fear. I realized how much I had learned about myself. I learned that healing is not a straight line. It is a winding path, full of ups and downs. But every step forward is important, no matter how small. I learned that strength does not mean never falling. It means getting up again, even when it is hard. I learned that I am worthy of love, respect, and happiness. As the stars began to appear, I whispered a quiet thank you to myself. Thank you for holding on. Thank you for choosing to keep going. Thank you for being brave. I smiled again, this time with a sense of peace that filled my whole being. I knew that the past would always be a part of me, but it would no longer define me. I was free to write the next pages of my story. She smiled, not because she forgot, but because she survived. Tomorrow, I will share a message of gratitude and reflection, a moment to say thank you for the journey and for those who walk it with us. Saying thank you felt like a quiet, healing ritual. It was not just about words, but about opening my heart and recognizing everything that had brought me to this moment. I sat down with my journal, a warm cup of tea by my side, and began to write. My pen moved slowly, carefully tracing the story of gratitude that had blossomed inside me. I said, "Thank you to myself first. Thank you for the courage to face the pain, for the strength to walk through the darkest moments, and for the patience to heal. I thanked myself for not giving up, even when everything felt impossible. It was a deep, tender thank you, the kind that honors the battles fought within, often unseen by others. Next, I said thank you to the people who had stayed by my side, Susan, my closest friend, who listened without judgment and held my hand when I was scared. My neighbor, Mrs. Parker, who checked in on me with a smile and a cup of fresh cookies. These small acts of kindness were like stars lighting up my nights. I also thanked those who had hurt me, though that felt more difficult. Their actions had caused me pain, but they also taught me valuable lessons. I learned about boundaries, trust, and self-respect because of them. Saying thank you did not mean I forgave easily or forgot what happened. It meant I was ready to release the heavy weight of anger and bitterness that had kept me tied to the past. Gratitude was a new language. For me, for years, I had focused on what was missing, what was wrong, and what I had lost. But now, I saw how much I still had: love, friendship, hope, and my own inner strength. Saying thank you helped me shift my view from loss to abundance. I remembered the small moments that had brought me joy. The first cup of coffee in the morning, the soft warmth of my blanket on a chilly night, the way sunlight streamed through my window in the early hours. These simple pleasures had become precious gifts. I thanked life for giving me these moments. Writing my thank yous became a daily practice. Each morning, I took a moment to reflect on what I was grateful for. Some days, it was easy to find many things. Other days, I struggled. But even on the hardest days, I found one small thing to hold on to: a kind word, a breath of fresh air, or a quiet moment of peace. This practice changed how I saw myself in the world. Gratitude opened my heart wider and softened my pain. It gave me hope and reminded me that life could still be beautiful, even after loss and betrayal. One evening, I wrote these words: "Thank you for the lessons, the love, and the strength. Thank you for the chance to start again. I am grateful for this life, with all its light and shadow." Saying thank you was not just about the past. It was also about the future. I thanked myself for the promise to keep growing, to keep loving, and to keep choosing happiness. It was a promise I made with hope and determination. I began to notice how saying thank you affected my relationships too. When I expressed gratitude to others, it deepened our connection. People responded with warmth and kindness. Gratitude created a gentle cycle of giving and receiving that felt nourishing and real. Even when I was alone, I did not feel lonely. The act of gratitude filled my heart with a quiet joy. It reminded me that I was part of something bigger, a world full of love and possibility. Saying thank you was a turning point in my journey. It was a step toward healing and peace. It helped me forgive, not just others, but also myself. It reminded me that life is fragile and precious, and every moment is worth appreciating. As I closed my journal that night, I felt a deep sense of calm. My heart was lighter, and my spirit was fuller. I knew that saying thank you was not the end of my story, but a beautiful new beginning. Tomorrow, I will share how I learned to forgive myself, to let go of guilt, blame, and regret, and to finally find freedom within. Forgiving myself was the hardest step in my journey. For many years, I carried heavy feelings of guilt, blame, and regret. I believed that I had made mistakes so big that I did not deserve happiness or peace. These thoughts stayed with me like shadows, whispering doubts and sadness every day. At first, I thought forgiveness was only for others, those who had hurt me or made wrong choices. But slowly I realized that I needed to forgive myself, not because I was perfect or without fault, but because holding on to blame kept me trapped in the past. It stopped me from moving forward. One quiet evening, I sat alone with my thoughts. I looked deep inside and asked, why am I so hard on myself? What would I say to a dear friend who felt this pain? The answer came gently. I would tell her, she is human. that she made her best choices with what she knew then. I would remind her that everyone makes mistakes, and that those mistakes do not define her worth. That night, I decided to try forgiving myself. It was not easy. The first words felt strange and foreign. "I forgive you," I whispered softly. My voice shook. I could feel the weight of years begin to lift, little by little. I remembered moments when I blamed myself for things outside. My control. I blamed myself for not seeing signs earlier, for trusting the wrong people, for being vulnerable. But I began to understand that I did not cause the hurt. I was only human, doing my best in difficult situations. Forgiveness did not mean forgetting or pretending nothing happened. It meant accepting the past as it was and choosing to release the pain that held me back. It was a gift I gave to myself, a chance to heal and grow. As days passed, I practiced kindness toward myself. When old guilt arose, I would pause and say, "I forgive you again." Sometimes tears came, sometimes relief. Each time, forgiveness became a little easier. I also learned to speak kindly to myself. I stopped using harsh words in my thoughts. Instead of, "I should have known better," I told myself, "You did your best." Instead of, "I am a failure," I reminded myself, "You are learning and growing." This new way of thinking changed how I saw my mistakes. They became teachers, not punishers. They showed me where I needed to grow and where I could be more gentle with myself. I found strength in self-forgiveness. It helped me stand taller and face my future with hope. I was no longer a prisoner of regret, but a woman who could embrace her past and still believe in a better tomorrow. One day, I wrote in my journal, "I forgive myself for every mistake. I release the pain and choose love. I am worthy of forgiveness, peace, and joy." This simple truth gave me freedom. I stopped carrying the heavy burden of guilt. I felt lighter, freer, and more alive. Forgiving myself also improved my relationships. I was able to open my heart more fully, knowing I was enough. I could offer love without fear or doubt because I loved myself first. I realized that forgiveness is a journey, not a single moment. It requires patience, courage, and honesty. But it is always possible. Every step forward is a victory. As I look back now, I see how far I have come. Forgiving myself was the key that unlocked the door to healing and happiness. It allowed me to live fully and authentically. Tonight, as I close my eyes, I feel peace in my heart. I know I am forgiven. By others, yes. But most importantly, by myself. Tomorrow, I will share the story of how I found freedom. A freedom that felt like walking barefoot on warm grass, dancing in the rain, and feeling truly alive. Freedom felt like a quiet miracle. It was not loud or dramatic. It did not arrive with fireworks or celebrations. Instead, it came softly, like a gentle breeze that lifted the heavy curtains of my past and let the sunlight in. I was free. Free from the chains of fear, guilt, and sorrow that had held me for so long. I remember the day I truly felt free. It was early morning, and the air was cool and fresh. I stepped outside without shoes, feeling the soft grass under my feet. The earth was damp from the night's rain, cool and alive. I closed my eyes and took a deep breath. In that moment, I felt connected to everything, the sky above, the ground beneath, and the rhythm of my own heart. Walking barefoot was more than just a physical act. It was a symbol of my freedom. I was no longer afraid to be vulnerable. I no longer hid behind walls of anger or sadness. I let myself feel every emotion fully and honestly. The cool grass was a reminder that life is real and beautiful, even when it is hard. I began to dance. Not a formal dance or something meant to impress anyone. just simple, slow movements that felt good in my body. I swayed gently, feeling the wind move through my hair and the sun warm my face. With each step, I felt lighter, as if the weight of years was melting away. Dancing like that was a new experience for me. For many years, I had lived cautiously, afraid to take risks or show my true self. I worried about what others thought, what might go wrong, or how I could be hurt again. But now, dancing barefoot in my garden, I realized that freedom means choosing joy even when life is uncertain. This freedom was not about running away from my past. It was about embracing it, every joy, every pain, and deciding that I would not let it control me anymore. I was free to live my life on my own terms. I started to notice small freedoms every day. I allowed myself to wake up slowly without rushing. I spent time reading books that inspired me and writing letters to old friends. I took long walks without any plan, just following my own curiosity. These simple acts became celebrations of my new life. I found freedom in forgiveness, forgiving others and myself. I found freedom in choosing kindness over bitterness. I found freedom in trusting my own strength and wisdom. Most of all, I found freedom in love. Not just the love I gave to others, but the love I learned to give to myself. I saw my own worth clearly, and it gave me courage to face the future with an open heart. One afternoon, I sat by the window and watched children play in the park. They laughed without worry, running barefoot in the grass. I smiled because I realized that I had become like them, free to be myself, free to enjoy the simple gifts of life. Freedom was a journey, not a destination. It required patience and courage. Sometimes, old fears tried to return, whispering doubts and worries. But each time, I remembered the feeling of that cool grass beneath my feet and the joy of dancing under the sky. Those memories gave me strength. I knew that life would still have challenges. There would be days of sadness, disappointment, or loneliness. But freedom was the choice to keep moving forward, to keep believing in myself, and to keep seeking joy. As the sun set and painted the sky with colors of pink and gold, I felt a deep gratitude in my heart. I was free. Free to live, to love, and to be fully me. I whispered a quiet promise to myself. I will cherish this freedom. I will protect it and nurture it. I will never forget how far I have come. Tonight I will sleep with peace in my heart, ready to greet tomorrow with hope. Tomorrow's story will be about knowing who I am, embracing my identity, and the woman I have become. Knowing who I am felt like coming home after a long journey. It was not a sudden discovery or a loud announcement. Instead, it was a quiet, steady understanding that grew inside me day by day. I looked in the mirror and saw a woman who had lived through storms and sunshine. I saw someone who carried scars but also strength. I saw myself, fully and clearly. For many years, I had been unsure about who I really was. I tried to fit into roles that others expected: the perfect daughter, the helpful wife, the strong mother. Sometimes, I lost myself trying to please everyone. I forgot my own dreams, my own voice. But now, after all the pain and healing, I felt grounded in my true self. I knew my values, my desires, and my limits. I accepted my imperfections and celebrated my qualities. I was not perfect, and I did not have to be. I was a woman who had learned to stand up for herself. I was someone who could feel deeply and still keep moving forward. I was a person who valued honesty, kindness, and courage. This knowledge gave me peace and confidence. I thought about the journey that brought me here, the difficult conversations, the tears, the lonely nights, and the moments of joy. Each step had shaped me and taught me something important. I understood now that I was not defined by what others thought of me or by the mistakes I had made. I was defined by my resilience and my heart. Knowing who I am also meant embracing my past without shame or regret. I remembered the times when I felt invisible or unimportant, and I chose to honor those experiences as part of my story. They were chapters, not the whole book. I felt grateful for the woman I had become. She was wiser, kinder, and more patient. She was still growing, but she no longer doubted her worth. I was proud of myself for the courage to face my fears and for the strength to forgive. This new sense of self helped me build better relationships. I was able to communicate more openly and set healthy boundaries. I no longer allowed others to treat me poorly or dismiss my feelings. I had learned to listen to my intuition and trust my judgment. I also found joy in simple things: a good book, a warm cup of tea, a walk in nature. I learned to appreciate my own company and enjoy moments of solitude. Being alone was no longer lonely. It was peaceful and renewing. As I embraced my identity, I noticed changes in how others saw me. They respected me more because I respected myself. I attracted people who valued honesty and kindness. I felt surrounded by love and support. One evening, I wrote these words in my journal. I know who I am, and I am enough. I carry my past with grace and walk into my future with hope. I am whole. This feeling of knowing myself was a powerful gift. It gave me the freedom to live authentically, without fear or doubt. I was ready to share my story, not to seek approval, but to inspire others who might feel lost or alone. I understood that identity is not fixed. It grows and changes with experience. I welcomed this growth and promised to keep learning about myself. I was open to new dreams and new paths. Knowing who I am was the foundation for my happiness. It was the light that guided me through dark times and the strength that lifted me when I stumbled. It was the quiet voice inside that said, "You are worthy. You belong." As the night grew quiet, I felt a deep sense of peace. I was no longer searching for myself. I had found her. Tomorrow, I will share my message to you, the listener, a message of hope, love, and courage, from one heart to another. Dear listener, if you have stayed with me until now, then I believe you were meant to hear this. This is not just my story. In many ways, it is your story too. Because pain is universal. Loneliness is quiet, and too often, we carry it alone. But healing can be shared. So this is my message to you. You are stronger than you think. Even on the days when you feel tired or forgotten. Even when it seems like no one sees how hard you are trying. I see you. I have been where you are. I have felt invisible, unsure, hurt, and angry. I have stared out the window with tears on my face, wondering if anyone would ever truly understand me. But here is what I learned. Every emotion you feel is part of your story. You do not need to hide it. You do not need to pretend. You are allowed to be broken. You are allowed to fall apart. What matters is that you rise again. Even if it is slow, even if it is quiet, even if no one notices. Your healing matters. Your peace matters. Your voice matters. I want you to know something else. You are not too old to change. You are not too late to dream. You are not too weak to grow. It does not matter if you are 40 or 60 or 80. Your story is still unfolding, and you get to write the next chapter. There was a time when I let others define me. They rolled their eyes at my stories. They made me feel small and silly for remembering the past. They treated me like a background character in their lives, but not anymore. Now I own my story. I wrote it down, every tear, every lesson, every moment of strength. And I turned that story into something beautiful. I wrote it not to prove a point, but to free myself. And in doing so, I found power. I found joy. If you have ever felt unimportant, please hear me now. You matter. You have lived through more than people know. You have learned things no one can take from you, and you deserve to be heard. Do not wait for permission to heal. Do not wait for others to value you. Value yourself. Start small. Take a walk. Say no when you need to. Write your thoughts down. Call someone who lifts you up. And if no one calls you, call yourself back to life. You do not need to be perfect. You do not need to fix everything. You only need to be honest, with yourself first. Be gentle with your memories. Be proud of your scars. They mean you survived. I hope you know you are not alone. There are others like us. People who have carried silent burdens and walked through fire. We are quiet warriors. We are soft but unbreakable. We are women who rise. Let this be your reminder. You are not too much. You are not too little. You are exactly enough. You are exactly who you were always meant to be. If you are still listening, please take a breath with me. Right now. Close your eyes. Feel the ground beneath you. Place your hand on your heart and say these words. I am here. I am healing. I am whole. Let that be your starting place. I will leave you with this. Every day is a chance to choose yourself. Every day is a chance to speak kindly to your soul. And every day, no matter what others say, you are writing your own beautiful story. Thank you for walking this journey with me. I am proud of you, and I hope, truly hope, that one day you will be proud of yourself too. Until then, I am here, and I believe in you. With love, always.